So that's the first thing I wanted to say about Alzheimer's. The next thing is one of the reasons why, again, I've said this before, and hopefully this is familiar to my listeners. One of the reasons we don't understand Alzheimer's or memory is because we don't understand how nerves work. And this I've said, I think it's accurate to say over and over again. We have this model of the ions, calcium and magnesium, going in and out of the nerves, which conducts the impulse, and then it ends in a synapse, and then there's a release of neurotransmitters, and then from the presynaptic vesicle, and it crosses the mode and goes to the postsynaptic receptor, and then it starts the next calcium, magnesium going down the next nerve. And none of that is real. There are no synapses. The calcium and magnesium are byproducts of a nerve impulse, not the cause. And the neurotransmitters, likewise, are chemicals released as a result of the flow of the nerve, not the cause of the nerve. And synapses, I've been through this, are an electron microscope artifact that actually don't exist. So what we're talking about instead is a very simple model of, you have basically fatty tubes, and they have very complex structured water inside the tubes, and all coherent water is able to generate an electrical impulse because it liberates what we probably erroneously call electrons. And this gives rise to the electromagnetic phenomena, which is the basis of life. So the nerves are just the pathways mediated by the combination of water and ions. So all the different, sodium and chloride and magnesium and calcium that are dissolved in the water. These are the ions that conduct electromagnetic impulses through these channels that we call nerves. And this is all bound by an insulation, which is essentially a fatty layer over the nerve. And that keeps the electromagnetic flow from essentially leaking out of the nerve. Now, one of the ways that I actually believe, or I would say know, that this is accurate is because of the known action of how a local anesthetic works. People are actually saying that, well, we don't really know how general anesthesia works. General anesthesia essentially lifts out your consciousness, so you're no longer conscious for that 4 to 5 hours while you're having surgery. With local anesthetic like a Novocaine or lidocaine, they can do it in your mouth and your teeth. Or if you want to sew up a wound, you put some Novocaine in, and then downstream from that injection of Novocaine, you don't feel anything. And so you can more easily sew the wound or drill a tooth or something like that. So how does that work? So it turns out that all anesthetic are basically very polar, which means charged molecules, which are able to interfere in the structuring and the coherence of the water. And the best way to think of that is they take this gel, this coherent water, and make it into a kind of a puddle. And as everybody knows, the electromagnetic flow is far less through liquid bulk water than it is through gels. And so that essentially stops the flow going from the periphery to your consciousness center in your brain. And so therefore you don't feel anything. And that's how local anesthetics work, all of them. They dissolve the water, therefore they put like a watery dam in your nerve. The impulse can't flow because it can't get through the water. And so then you are not conscious of this sensation of pain. With general anesthetic, what's happening is They're basically using chemicals which have a strong affinity for water, have a strong affinity because they're very polar, have a very strong affinity for destructuring or lessening the coherence of the water. So they make a sort of a fine, so almost like a puddle in your brain, because your brain is actually the highest concentration and the most finely structured water in your body. It's about 80% water, all of it very highly structured in these convolutions and tubes, all of which are meant to create areas of different coherence, different structure, which then are able to download different impulses from the outside, from sun and thoughts and etc. So you're downloading these thoughts and feelings and impulses and electromagnetic forces into the structure, into these different coherent structures, and together those cohere together to form what we call consciousness. If you make it into a puddle, you can't download these thoughts, you can't form them into what we call consciousness, you can't create memory out of those. And so then you, in the case of general anesthetic, go to sleep. And if this is happening on a subtle, ongoing basis, it basically deteriorates the possibility of memory. And so with memory problems, i.e. Alzheimer's, it isn't that you continually do general anesthesia, although there is some fascinating research that one of these primary risk factors for having memory problems, Alzheimer's later in life, is the number of general anesthetic procedures you've had in your life. In other words, if you keep melting your brain, disturbing the coherence of your brain over and over again with these highly polar destructuring poisons, eventually it gets hard for your body to reform them into a proper crystalline structure, which is what your brain is meant to be. And then you will have more and more memory loss as time goes on. So that observation completely fits with this model that I'm giving you, that this is essentially all about the coherence of your brain. Now, there's a lot of other things that over time interfere with this coherence of your brain. And again, the different areas of the brain, depending on what they're meant to do, have different crystalline structure. One is sort of like rose quartz, and the other is like green quartz or feldspar or amber or whatever, different variations of crystalline structure, all so that they download different thoughts, feelings, impulses, electromagnetic frequencies. So one of the ways you can do it is not have the ions, the minerals that you need in order to create this coherent water structure. So being ion deficient is a surefire way to increase the chances that you'll have memory problems, i.e. Alzheimer's. This is probably one of the ways that even things like tissue salts, cell salts work, by providing ions in a form that you can use. It's why things like sea plasma and healthy salt and all those sort of things, providing yourself with proper minerals is key to creating a healthy structure of the water in your brain. On the other hand, exposing yourself, usually by injection, to toxic heavy metals, the most egregious of which is probably aluminum, displaces these normal ions, calcium, magnesium, sodium, chloride, etc., with these heavy metals because they have the same valence. And now you have, instead of a healthy water structure, you have a distorted crystalline structure, which is a tangled web of incoherent crystals, which then cannot form the proper basis for minerals. So in those people, the thing that you need to do, besides never injecting yourself with such aluminum and, a lead containing stuff, is you have to replenish your minerals, and even then do some things, some detoxification in the ways that we've talked about, to try to get those heavy metals out of your system. And there have been some good successes with treating people with memory loss with detoxification and heavy metal detoxification protocols that are also in conjunction with, drinking structured water and remineralizing, because you're improving the clarity, the coherence of the water, which is the basis of how nerves function, and therefore the basis of memory and consciousness. You can also not only be deficient in the minerals, you can be deficient in the insulating fats, which means that you're eating toxic fats, commercial oils, not eating healthy animal fats, and all the things that are part of the nourishing traditions type of diet. So that's another way. Then you get nerves that are leaking out these electromagnetic impulses, and therefore can't function in the way that they're supposed to. So there's a lot of other ways. You can have inflammation in your brain from eating too much sugar. The brain likes a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet. It's another way to improve your memory, is to adopt a ketogenic, low-carb, 20 to 40 grams per day, high-fat diet, and to even improve the clarity of your water by doing a deuterium depleted water protocol. And I've talked about that some. And that is a way to doing those together, which is how they're recommended. You do a ketogenic, high-fat, low-carb diet that improves essentially the insulation, and then you lower the deuterium, which helps you improve the structuring of the water in your brain. And both of those things have been shown to help memory and people with Alzheimer's disease. And the final thing is there's more things, but the final thing I'm going to say today is you have to pay attention not just to your receiver, that's the radio, but the impulses that you're presenting to your receiver. And this is why, any wireless device, any electromagnetic field that interferes with the healthy sunlight and moonlight and connection with people and animals and plants and the earth, all that is not the electromagnetic field that we're meant to receive. It's instead highly sort of strong, single frequency, high intensity, essentially toxic electromagnetic fields, which also create heat and melt your coherent water and turn you into a kind of a puddle, which then makes it so your consciousness is dull and your nerves can't work properly. And all those things are essentially to me, an accurate description of what Alzheimer's is, based on the real physiology, not the make-believe physiology that we were all told in school and medicine. So to summarize, this has to do with the crystalline, coherent character of the nerves. It has to do with the insulation of the nerves. And it has to do with your consciousness in committing to be accurate, honest, and never tell a lie, as Mark Twain said. And that includes exaggerating or under-exaggerating. So what you're going to do is never tell a lie as best you can. And if you do, just go back and say, that's not what I meant to say. And this includes also, by the way, how you talk to yourself, not just to others. Be accurate, be specific, describe what it is that you see, feel, or think right now. You can always be wrong, then you can correct it. But if you don't describe it exactly, there's nothing to correct. So that's the first step. Second step is don't poison your water. Don't anesthetize yourself. This is with, toxic drugs, antidepressants, antipsychotics, aluminum, heavy metals, lead, all the stuff that we use to poison ourselves. Some of it comes from the outside in chemtrails, etc. And finally, and instead replenish with either plasma seawater or maybe cell salts and really real food, and then replenish your insulation, the fatty layer, with good fats, not toxic fats. Use some structured water device. Consider deuterium depleted water and a ketogenic type diet. And I tell you, most people will have a lot of relief from their memory problems by doing just that.